Library Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Chapter 49 Ill-motivated Dhṛtarāṣṭra thus ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, Ācārya visited Hastinapura, said to be the site of what is now New Delhi. The part of New Delhi still known as Indraprastha is accepted by people in general as the old capital of the Pandavas. The very name Hastinapura suggests that there were many Hastis, or elephants, because the Pandavas kept many elephants in the capital. It was called Hastinapura. Keeping elephants is very expensive. To keep many elephants, therefore, the kingdom must be very rich, and Hastinapura, as Ācārya saw when he reached it, was full of elephants, horses, chariots and other opulences. The kings of Hastinapura were taken to be the ruling kings of the whole world. Their fame was widely spread throughout the entire kingdom, and their administration was conducted under the good counsel of learned brahmanas. After seeing the very opulent capital city, Ācārya met King Dhṛtarāṣṭra. He also saw grandfather Bhisma sitting with him. After meeting them, he went to see Vidura and then Kunti, Ācārya's cousin. One after another, he saw King Balika and his son Samadhitta, Dhṛtarāṣṭra, Kṛṣṇa, Karna, and Suyodhana. Suyodhana is another name of Duryodhana. Then he saw the son of Dhṛtarāṣṭra, Asvathama, as well as the 5 Pandava brothers and other friends and relatives living in the city. All those who met Ācārya, known also as the son of Gandhini, were very much pleased to receive him and inquire about the welfare of their respective relatives. He was offered a good seat at his receptions, and he in turn inquired all about the welfare and activities of his relatives. Since he was deputed by Lord Krishna to visit Hastinapura, it is understood that he was very intelligent in studying a diplomatic situation. Dhṛtarāṣṭra was unlawfully occupying the throne after the death of King Pandu, despite the presence of Pandu's sons. Ācārya could understand very well that ill-motivated Dhṛtarāṣṭra was much inclined in favor of his own sons. In fact, Dhṛtarāṣṭra had already usurped the kingdom and was now intriguing to dispose of the 5 Pandava brothers. Ācārya knew that all the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra, headed by Duryodhana, were very crooked politicians. Dhṛtarāṣṭra did not act in accordance with the good instructions given by Bhisma and Vidura. Instead, he was being conducted by the ill instructions of such persons as Karna and Sakuni. Ācārya decided to stay in Hastinapura for a few months to study the whole political situation. Gradually Ācārya learned from Kunti and Vidura that the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra were intolerant and envious of the 5 Pandava brothers because of their extraordinary learning in military science and their greatly developed bodily strength. The Pandavas acted as truly chivalrous heroes, exhibited all the good qualities of Kshatriyas and were very responsible princes, always thinking of the welfare of the citizens. Ācārya also learned that the envious sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra had tried to kill the Pandavas by poisoning them. Ācārya happened to be one of the cousins of Kunti, therefore, after meeting him, she began to inquire about her paternal relatives. Thinking of her birthplace and beginning to cry, she asked Ācārya whether her father, mother, brothers, sisters and other friends at home still remembered her. She especially inquired about Krishna and Balarama, her glorious nephews. She asked, "Does Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very affectionate to his devotees, remember my sons? Does Balarama remember us?" Inside herself, Kunti felt like a deer in the midst of tigers, and actually her position was like that. After the death of her husband, King Pandu, she was supposed to take care of the 5 Pandava children, but the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra were always planning to kill them. She was certainly living like a poor innocent animal in the midst of several tigers. Being a devotee of Lord Krishna, she always thought of him and expected that one day Krishna would come and save them from their dangerous position. She inquired from Ācārya whether Krishna proposed to come to advise the fatherless Pandavas how to get free of the intrigues of Dhṛtarāṣṭra and his sons. Talking with Ācārya about all these affairs, she felt herself helpless and exclaimed, "My dear Krishna, my dear Krishna! You are the supreme mystic, the supersoul of the universe. You are the real well-wisher of the whole universe. My dear Govinda, at this time you are far away from me, yet I pray to surrender unto your lotus feet. I am now grief-stricken with my 5 fatherless sons. I can fully understand that but for your lotus feet there is no shelter or protection. Your lotus feet can deliver all aggrieved souls because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can be safe from the clutches of repeated birth and death by your mercy only. My dear Krishna, you are the Supreme Pure One, the Supersoul and the Master of all yogis. What can I say? I can simply offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Accept me as your fully surrendered devotee." Although Krishna was not present before her, Kunti offered her prayers to him as if she were in his presence face to face. This is possible for anyone following in the footsteps of Kunti. Krishna does not have to be physically present everywhere. He is actually present everywhere by spiritual potency, and one simply has to surrender unto him sincerely. When Kunti was offering her prayers very feelingly to Krishna, she could not check herself and began to cry loudly before Akrura. Vidura was also present, and both Akrura and Vidura became very sympathetic to the mother of the Pandavas and began to solace her by glorifying her 5 sons, namely Yudhishthira, Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula, and Sahadeva. They pacified her, saying that her sons were extraordinarily powerful, she should not be perturbed about them, since they were born of great demigods like Yamaraja, Indra, and Vayu. Akrura decided to return home and report on the strange circumstances in which he found Kunti and her 5 sons. He first wanted to give good advice to Dhṛtarāṣṭra, who was so favorably inclined toward his own sons and unfavorably inclined toward the Pandavas. When King Dhṛtarāṣṭra was sitting among friends and relatives, Akrura began to address him, calling him Vyāsadeva. Vyāsadeva means the son of Vyāsadeva. Vyāsadeva was the name of Dhṛtarāṣṭra's father, but Dhṛtarāṣṭra was actually the begotten son not of Vyāsadeva but of Vyāsadeva. Formerly it was the system that if a man was unable to beget a child, his brother could beget a child in the womb of his wife, Divarina Sudopati. That system is now forbidden in this age of Kali. Akrura called Dhṛtarāṣṭra Vyāsadeva sarcastically because he was not actually begotten by his father. He was the son of Vyāsadeva. When a child was begotten in the wife by the husband's brother, the child was claimed by the husband, but of course the child was not begotten by the husband. This sarcastic remark pointed out that Dhṛtarāṣṭra was falsely claiming the throne on hereditary grounds. Actually Pandu had been the rightful king, and in the presence of Pandu's sons, the Pandavas, Dhṛtarāṣṭra should not have occupied the throne. Akrura said, "My dear son of Vyāsadeva, you have unlawfully usurped the throne of the Pandavas. Anyway, somehow or other you are now on the throne. Therefore I beg to advise you to please rule the kingdom on moral and ethical principles. If you do so and try to please your subjects in that way, your name and fame will be perpetual." Akrura hinted that although Dhṛtarāṣṭra was ill-treating his nephews, the Pandavas, they happened to be his subjects. Even if you treat them not as the owners of the throne but as your subjects, you should impartially think of their welfare as though they were your own sons. But if you do not follow this principle and act in just the opposite way, you will be unpopular among your subjects, and in the next life you will have to live in a hellish condition. I therefore hope you will treat your sons and the sons of Pandu equally. Akrura hinted that if Dhṛtarāṣṭra did not treat the Pandavas and his sons as equals, surely there would be a fight between the 2 camps of cousins. Since the Pandavas' cause was just, they would come out victorious, and the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra would be killed. This was a prophecy told by Akrura to Dhṛtarāṣṭra. Akrura further advised Dhṛtarāṣṭra, in this material world, no one can remain an eternal companion to another. Only by chance do we assemble together in a family, society, community or nation, but at the end, because every one of us has to give up the body, we must be separated. One should not, therefore, be unnecessarily affectionate toward family members. Dhṛtarāṣṭra's affection was also unlawful and did not show much intelligence. In plain words, Akrura hinted to Dhṛtarāṣṭra that his staunch family affection was due to his gross ignorance of fact or his blindness to moral principles. Although we appear combined together in a family, society or nation, each of us has an individual destiny. Everyone takes birth according to individual past work, therefore everyone must individually enjoy or suffer the result of his own karma. There is no possibility of improving one's destiny by cooperative living. Sometimes it happens that one's father accumulates wealth by illegal ways, and the son takes away the money, although it was earned with great difficulty by the father, just as a small fish in the ocean eats the material body of a large, old fish. One ultimately cannot accumulate wealth illegally for the gratification of his family, society, community or nation. An illustration of this principle is that many great empires which developed in the past are no longer existing because their wealth was squandered away by later descendants. One who does not know this subtle law of fruitive activities and who thus gives up the moral and ethical principles carries with him only the reactions of his sinful activities. His ill-gotten wealth and possessions are taken by someone else, and he goes to the darkest region of hellish life. One should not, therefore, accumulate more wealth than allotted to him by destiny, otherwise he will be factually blind to his own interest. Instead of fulfilling his self-interest, he will act in just the opposite way, for his own downfall. Akrura continued, "My dear Dhṛtarāṣṭra, I beg to advise you not to be blind to the facts of material existence. Material, conditioned life, either in distress or in happiness, is to be accepted as a dream. One should try to bring his mind and senses under control and live peacefully for spiritual advancement in Krishna consciousness." In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said that except for persons in Krishna consciousness, everyone is always disturbed in mind and full of anxiety. Even those trying for liberation, or merging into the Brahma effulgence, and the yogis who try to achieve perfection in mystic power cannot have peace of mind. Pure devotees of Krishna have no demands to make of Krishna. They are simply satisfied with service to him. Actual peace and mental tranquility can be attained only in perfect Krishna consciousness. After hearing these moral instructions from Akrura, Dhṛtarāṣṭra replied, "My dear Akrura, you are very charitable in giving me good instructions, but unfortunately I cannot accept them. A person destined to die does not utilize the effects of nectar, although it may be administered to him. I can understand that your instructions are valuable. Unfortunately, they do not stay in my flickering mind, just as the glittering lightning in the sky does not stay fixed in a cloud. I can understand only that no one can stop the onward progress of the Supreme Will. I understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, has appeared in the family of the Yadas to decrease the burdensome load on this earth." Dhṛtarāṣṭra hinted to Akrura that he had complete faith in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, he was very partial to his family members. In the very near future, Krishna would vanquish all the members of his family, and in a helpless condition Dhṛtarāṣṭra would take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. To show his special favor to a devotee, Krishna usually takes away all the objects of his material affection, thus forcing the devotee to be materially helpless, with no alternative but to accept the lotus feet of Krishna. This actually happened to Dhṛtarāṣṭra after the end of the battle of Kurukshetra. Dhṛtarāṣṭra could realize two opposing factors acting before him. He could understand that Krishna was there to remove all the unnecessary burdens of the world. His sons were an unnecessary burden, and so he expected that they would be killed. At the same time, he could not rid himself of his unlawful affection for his sons. Understanding these two contradictory factors, he offered his respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The contradictory ways of material existence are very difficult to understand. They can be taken only as the inconceivable execution of the plan of the Supreme, who by his inconceivable energy creates this material world and enters into it and sets into motion the three modes of nature. When everything is created, he enters into each and every living entity and into the smallest atom. No one can understand the incalculable plans of the Supreme Lord. After hearing this statement, Akrura could clearly understand that Dhṛtarāṣṭra was not going to change his policy of discriminating against the Pandavas in favor of his sons. He at once took leave of his friends in Hastinapura and returned to his home in the kingdom of the Yadas. After returning home, he vividly informed Lord Krishna and Balarama of the actual situation in Hastinapura and the intentions of Dhṛtarāṣṭra. Akrura was sent to Hastinapura by Krishna to study these, and by the grace of the Lord he was successful. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 49th chapter of Krishna, ill-motivated Dhṛtarāṣṭra.